Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
They bleep you at the movies, okay? They bleep you at the movies. They know you're going to be rehashing old plots before you find out you got bleeped. They know you're not going to walk out in a huff. They don't care. So who gets bleeped? Oh, Reviews Without Remorse, okay? Sure. I don't give a bleep. I'm not reviewing this movie, okay? My name is David, and I have diplomatic immunity. His name is Joe, and he's just revoked it.
What's up, coachies?
Not much, man. Good to talk with you. But this is episode 159. But in this show, we will discuss The Amazing Spider-Man 2's Electro and Green Goblin, original Mary Jane Watson. What the heck is going on with the next MCU Spider-Man movie? Thanks to some Colorado pot farmer, we are going to have to suffer a long time for new movies. No Time to Die, The Batman, The Flash, Shazam, and Dune have all been pushed off their original release dates. Bleep! And then, it's the return of Riggs and Murtaugh with special new friend Leo Getz. Joe and I head back to the LAPD and review Lethal Weapon 2. What's up, partner?
What's going on, my friend? How are you? You've already piqued my interest on some of those topics, so I think we need to get rolling.
So let's get to it.
Stay with me, Max.
You set me up.
No, I didn't set you up.
You lied to me.
No, I'm trying to help. Let me help you.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man.
Now, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't report rumors. But about a week ago, just before we started recording last week's episode, there was talk, and Jamie Foxx was kind of being coy about being involved in the next Spider-Man movie as Electro, which was like, huh? Okay. And then today, it was rumored that Dean DeHaan, who played Green Goblin in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Jamie Foxx, and Kirsten Dunst are also being looked at for parts in the up-and-coming Spider-Man movie. So we're getting a live-action Into the Spider-Verse?
So this is, just so I'm clear, this is for an official Marvel Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Is that right?
Correct.
Can't say that I can't say that sounds good to me, but why don't you tell me some more?
I gotta be honest with you. I look at this and I say to myself, one of two things. This is the chink in the armor for the ever popular, ever tried and true in Feige we trust, or this is Sony bullshit.
Mm.
And if I'm looking at a choice, I kind of feel like it's Sony bullshit.
Yeah, I tell you what, honestly, assuming we're just in the rumor stages at this point, and if Kevin Feige has not said that himself, I would probably just chalk that up to horseshit, because, I mean, honestly, I'm watching other franchises dabble in this, and I kind of feel like, look, we could have a lot of fun doing that. You want Michael Keaton to bump into Christian Bale and bump. I mean, I'm hearing it. But I kind of feel like stuff like this would work as an animated film. The Into the Spider-Verse was fun. I get it, but if they tried to muck up actual Marvel universe with this sort of stuff, I'd really be disappointed. I think it's got its place, but honestly, I mean, I see what they're doing over at the on TV, the DC shows, and that's kind of the place for it. You know, have at it, have fun with it, but don't muck up a seriously good franchise with that kind of silliness.
I hope this is all wrong. And again, normally I wouldn't report a rumor. That was one of our agreements. But Jamie Foxx was kind of like hinting and alligating at it. So there's at least the tiniest sliver of validity to it. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, when it was first, one of the reasons I didn't even want to report it was when it was first said and he was being coy about it. A part of me was like, hey, you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't mind if Jamie Foxx got a second chance at Electro, but without the stupid nerdy obsessed guy, doing it differently. Because I kind of felt that there were some moments where he was pretty okay, but when he was playing the nerdy side of it, it was just like ridiculous, So I wouldn't mind that, but now it's sounding more and more, and now it's sounding more. Oh God, I hate that I'm going to say the following words, but sinister.
Well played, my friend. Well played. Yeah, listen, look, I first of all, there's nothing wrong with talking about the rumors. I mean, we can speculate like everybody else. Why not? And just sort
of course.
Okay, and do we think it's a good idea to go forward if that were to be the case? Again,
I do not.
It's right. Yeah, it's good fodder for speculation, but yeah, I think it's just. I think it's all. It sounds like nonsense, and I think we should leave it as nonsense.
Oh, I hope to God it's nonsense. I hope to God it's nonsense.
Why would I betray you?
We all have our secrets. We just didn't get to yours yet.
It became a cascade. Joe, as listeners to his other podcast would know, found out the dreadful news on Friday. Actually, again, shortly after we finished recording, it was announced on Friday that No Time to Die was being pushed off till April 2021. Joe, those wonderful memes aside, it's gotten a little bit worse. It was announced shortly. It was announced yesterday, Sunday of all days, that not only have they been moved off, but Warner Brothers has basically shifted their entire block of movies. That would be The Flash, which is now moved to November of 2022. Shazam, which has now been moved to June of 2023. Funnily enough, Black Adam is off the schedule. Minecraft is been moved, but I don't give a crap about that because the two ones that kill me was the Batman is being moved from 2021 to March 4th, 2022. And Dune has been moved from December 18th of 2020 to October 1st of 2021. I don't even know if I'm going to live that fucking long.
Yeah. Dude, where to begin? Honestly, and the worst part is that there's other ramifications that go beyond this, but I'll get to it. Yeah, I think I literally just posted our last podcast before news about No Time to Die broke, and I think that was the first one of this batch to officially get moved, and that was, needless to say, I was personally disappointed. Although, well, actually, let me say it another way. I think officially I was disappointed. Personally, I kind of didn't mind that it got moved because I felt like, look, with the climate being what it is, it just wouldn't even be fun to see it right now if we had to do some kind of weird nonsense with social distancing and masks for the whole movie, etc. I don't even know what theaters near me are even open at this point.
Well, after No Time to Die was announced, actually Regal and AMC flipped out and said that theaters are closed for the foreseeable future.
There you go, and there's the ramifications, right? There's the that to me is a little more tragic. And I look, I'm not going to comment on COVID. I feel like I've sort of learned my lesson with that. People want to just be scared and that's it. Okay, fine. Well, you have it your way. I kind of feel like at this stage of the game, knowing what we know, this is not new anymore. There has to be a better strategy than just sitting back and watching entire industries go down the tube. So yeah, it is kind of crushing. It is crushing. And yeah, I mean, I'd been joking for years, and it's sad to say it that it's literally been years, because No Time to Die now is officially going to be a 6-year gap between the films. And this is really kind of getting just sort of absurd. And I've been joking for quite a while that they postponed it so much. There literally might not be such a thing as movie theaters anymore to release it to once this is all done. I say that slightly tongue in cheek. I mean, I know it was shot in IMAX. I'm sure that is sort of the end goal to literally get it into the theaters at this point. They could never. That company wouldn't survive, I don't think, if they simply just put it on VOD, and a lot of fans have asked for it. Just put it on streaming. I'm tired of waiting for it. Just, we know it's done. It's been done, so let's just see it. But yeah, they can't. They'd never recoup their investment. Nowhere near it. So yeah, so they have to wait until we can actually get a theater experience. But yeah, it is really getting kind of dicey for these theater chains, and I don't know what the answer is.
I'm not 100% sure either, to be perfectly honest with you. This is a cluster bleep. I'm tired. I'm just tired. Tired. I want to go to the damn movies.
Brother, I am with you. And I kind of feel like, there was sort of a rallying cry. There were articles saying that the theater chains were really counting on the new James Bond flick to be the one to rescue cinema. So this was particularly painful. This hurt a lot of people, and it continues to. And I really do think it's time to rethink the big old strategy, guys. Just sitting home and, again, watching things fall apart might not be the best one.
Who is it?
Police, open up.
How do I know you're the police?
After I shoot you through the door, you can examine the bullet. Open up.
Mel Gibson, Danny Glover,
Come on, let's go, Raj.
Oh, no, we shouldn't go.
Let's go. Come on, Raj. Don't be a killjoy.
Come on, we're back.
We're bad. You're black. I'm mad.
Come on, man. Hey, listen. If we're going, shouldn't I have a gun?
No.
Now, get ready for something lethal.
I'm surprised you haven't heard about me. I got a bad reputation. I mean, sometimes I just go nuts like now.
Because the magic
Gun!
is back.
Come on, out the window, no!
Hey, you all right, man? Yeah, I'm okay. Where were you, man? You're my partner or what? Why didn't you follow me down?
Yeah, why don't you follow him down?
Shut up! I'm 7 floors up!
Lethal Weapon 2.
Riggs and Murtaugh are on the trail of South African diplomats who are using their immunity to engage in criminal activities. Written by Jeffrey Baum, based on a story by Shane Black and Warren Murphy, based on characters created by Shane Black, directed by Richard Donner. Lethal Weapon 2. Oh, it's my first full cast list that was a mouthful. Aw, we've come back. Aw.
It certainly was.
Okay, so one of the first.
Okay.
The first thing you notice about Lethal Weapon 2, right from the get-go, is its tongue is a little more firmly in their cheek than in the first one. Okay, the quips come fast, come furious, much more than the first one. The first one had a much darker tone, so the jokes were kind of, not as overt as I felt they were in this one. And I'm sure that's because of the writing of Jeffrey Baum. He's Jeffrey Baum. I'll just leave it at that. That said, this is an exciting and fun movie that I still found myself laughing at. What are we talking about here? 31 years later?
Wow, is it that long? I guess so.
Yep.
Good Lord.
1989, I believe this came out. But yes, 31 years later, I still found myself laughing at, the hey mo joke when he's taking out the thing. I still find the chemistry between Danny Glover and Mel Gibson to be really, really good, if not stronger now in this movie than the first. And, it is a typical 80s movie, 80s action movie. But is that so bad?
No, it's not. Yeah, and by the way, good observation right out of the gate, frankly. Yes, I've always sort of had that same vibe from this film, that it is just a little more, winking at the camera at certain moments. I get that. And yes, I firmly put that at the feet of Jeffrey Boehm, who, he was pretty, he was getting a lot of work around that era. And I remember kind of feeling like this might be a little harsh, but that he kind of came from the Lorenzo Semple Jr. school of writing. But and I'll tell you this too. I kind of you and I have talked about what makes a perfect sequel, and I've always sort of gone back to Die Hard 2, and again, even though I say it's hardly a perfect film, but in terms of how you sort of do a sequel, I think it's sort of a perfect archetype. I would frankly put this one right up there as well, calling this a kind of a near perfect sequel, because it does a few things, and one of the things you notice story wise with this film is and this is the problem with sequels in general, and how do you sort of combat that problem? But oftentimes the first film that kind of kicks off a franchise, well, our main character had an arc, had an arc, and we sort of saw the arc go through to completion, where he was not the same person at the end that he was in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Effective storytelling 101. Well, then what do you do when it comes time for the sequel? Do you just sort of forget that the arc happened and have him do more of that sort of same stuff? Quantum of Solace, anyone? Well, I think Lethal Weapon 2 sort of finds a pretty interesting solution, where you sort of take, it works in terms of that we had seen this character go through the ringer, and so when the film opens up, we got kind of a happier character. Him and Murtaugh are obviously fast friends after their first adventure. He's kind of part of the family at this point. I love the little kind of hints and nods in this, that he has become very much part of the family. You see him kind of cooking dinner over at their house at one night. Where does Trish keep my laundry? I mean, so they do make it a point to say that this, he's a pretty happy guy, and they're getting along great, and he's one of the family. Well, but we got to see Crazy Riggs again. Crazy, out of his mind Riggs, who's ready to start murdering people. Well, what do? You run him through the ringer again, and not only do you cause calamity in his life, but you also sort of bring up things that had happened in the past and sort of rub that in his face again. So you kind of get the best of both worlds here. And I think, I think for the most part, like you said, there is a lot more tongue in cheek with this one. Even the gag, frankly, they try to sort of recreate, and interestingly, we'll see a lot of the problems I start to hint at here will get far worse in the third one. Here we're still kind of dancing the line pretty well, but they do the gag where they first meet Leo Getz, and the gunman comes in, and he goes onto the tray table, and it somehow takes them to the window, and they crash through the window. It's very to sort of get us out that window. It's a little confusing, but we're just going to kind of cover up or whatever. And they all three of them go out the window, and it's kind of reminiscent of when Riggs took the guy off the roof in the first one.
Right.
But yeah, it's like you said, it's a lot more tongue in cheek. I sure hope hotels are not made that with flimsy glass like that anybody who bumps the window is going to go flying out of it. So it is kind of an interesting cocktail here, where again, you're kind of getting, there's a lot of good writing. There's a lot of flawed moments. There are a lot of situations that I kind of they feel a little more forced than how they felt much more organic in the first one. I mean, again, the first one is just plain old good storytelling. Here, we're trying a little harder to hodgepodge certain elements into this story and make it work. But again, the overall effect, I think, for the most part, is working pretty well.
I agree. For the most part, it does work well. It isn't easy though. You know what? A part of me is almost glad that we didn't review this immediately after. I think we would have been more disparaging on it if this was like, first week was the first week weapon, then we do this one.
Good bag.
Because we have enough distance from it that just like the audience was, that maybe we were more open to this new idea. But it is a tonal shift in the series. This is the tone that the series is now benchmarked for from this point forward. And there are good reasons to do that. I mean, there are some dark areas that they're going to go to, so they're trying to keep it relatively light until they smack you across the face. But I feel it almost detracts a little bit from the first movie, with the dependency on over-quipping, with the dependency on. And listen, I love me some Joe Pesci, but like the doses that they use him in this movie is fine. What he becomes is not, but we'll discuss that as the series continues, won't we?
Yes, we will. And yeah, right. It'll, again, a lot of the problems that you start to see the first little hints of here, boy, do they blow up later on. And ironically, I might as well make a confession now. I'm 99% sure that at the time I saw this film, this was the first time I ever saw Joe Pesci. I'm pretty sure this was the first thing.
You saw this before Goodfellas?
Dude, it came out several years before Goodfellas. Goodfellas was like 91 or something, and this would have been I guess 90. Well,
it was 89. Wait a minute.
89.
So really,
right?
Just before. What about Home Alone? Wasn't he in Home Alone before this? Hold on, I got to look at his career. Stand by. I'm trying to, because I knew him before. Before he was in Lethal. Okay, so Raging Bull. Yep, remember that. Easy Money.
I'm telling you, I really, again, I probably at that point in my life, and again, I almost feel like, Goodfellas was well, now this can't be right either, but I'm trying to remember. I mean, this was sort of the time in my life where I was sort of graduating from action movies to, I mean, I'm in college from like 88 forward. So I'm sort of like really discovering cinema, like really deep, good stuff, classics, etc. I'm pretty sure when I saw this one, Joe Pesci was pretty. I did not make any connections at all. I don't think I had seen Easy Money at this point. In fact, I don't think I ever saw Easy Money until I saw Back to School, and then somebody would sort of point out, oh, you got to see the old Rodneys or whatever. Even Home Alone, I'm not sure. I know I saw Home Alone in the theater.
No, Home Alone wasn't until later. It was until next year, 1990.
There you go. Okay.
So yeah, so that was actually a big year for him. Goodfellas and Home Alone. Talk about two sides of a coin.
Right. Exactly. Seriously. So yeah, Joe Pesci, to me, I kind of just thought this is all he was, and then all of a sudden, right? Imagine my surprise. Goodfellas, and I'm like, holy smokes! Well, that's okay. Well, this guy can act, I guess.
Yeah. No, yeah, he's definitely a great actor. He's definitely a great comedic actor. I don't have any problem with that. I just feel like his particular character is a doses character, and I think the amount of doses that they used in this one was fine. And I just don't think it maintained.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like you said, that tonal shift is there, and the need for comedy relief is suddenly now a thing. So yeah, I get where you're coming from, and it can be much. It can be much. I get it. I kind of feel like he I really can't take anything away from his character in this because it was such a unique character. I kind of feel like he really took this and made it his own. If you ask me who he's sort of portraying in this with the okay, like I don't know. I kind of feel like this was a very unique character, and it's, for the most part, pretty well managed. Like I said, it'll later on it's a different story.
Police, open up.
How do I know it's the police?
After I shoot you through the door, you can examine the bullet. Open up. That was easy. Don't you want to see a badge?
Don't do that again. Okay, let me see a badge.
Shut up.
Okay, I get it. Bad cop, good cop.
Shut up.
Okay. Bad cop. I got it. I know all those
You
routines.
Leo Getz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's me, Leo Getz. Whatever you need, Leo Getz. You get it? I use that all the time to break the ice when I meet people. You know, it's good.
I'm Sergeant Meriton. This is Sergeant Riggs.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. Okay, so what do I call you guys?
Sergeant Murtaugh, Sergeant Riggs.
We're gonna be your shadow for a few days, Leo.
The basic plot, and this is another thing that it has me a little bit curious. Like, the first movie seemed to have at least a straightforward plot. Like, I'm still confused, even after rewatching it. What were the South Africans doing?
That's a good. Well, I mean, it certainly had something to do with
Krugerrands and money. That I know.
right. Well, I mean, I guess they're essentially laundering. They're essentially laundering their Krugerrands to American dollars to take back, I guess, as having been laundered. And I guess you never really see the drugs in this movie, but there's an implication that it's drug money.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know there was an implication of drugs, but there was really no, it was just like glossed over. They spent more time on making sure people were protesting apartheid than they did over what it was these bad guys were actually doing so bad.
That's, yeah, you are absolutely correct with that. And I have to acknowledge you're right. I really don't know either now that you mention it, because I mean, again, they do sort of give an explanation in the beginning, and they said, "Oh, it's triangle trade. It's drugs to Krugerrand to whatever." Right. I mean, the end result is they were going back with a gigantic stash of cash.
Right.
So right, that was sort of the end result. But you're absolutely correct that once we sort of get the thing in the beginning, and I also have to confess too, I mean, this opens up, stellar opening, but I'll come back to that. I mean, it opens up in the middle, sort of this. There's no real discovery where we get the first glimpse of wrongdoing, and now we start following clues. We're already sort of hip deep. There's a car chase going on. We don't really understand why, who. I mean, how did this car chase even start if the first time they hear voices is over that radio while the chase is going on? And then, of course, the end result of that is Krugerrands in the trunk. Then we get a very quick little lecture about the triangle trade. Then you're absolutely right. It's almost like the villainy of apartheid now takes over. Now we just don't like them because of South Africa, because of apartheid, etc. And they kind of make that very clear throughout the film. So you're absolutely right. We kind of just sort of forgot about the whole drug thing. Now we just don't like them because they're a bunch of prejudiced skunks.
Yeah, exactly. Which this is another thing that now the series starts to do, where it starts doing preaching. I mean, besides the product placement, which is another thing we'll get to, but there's some preaching going on.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, this is a very socially conscious film. And by the way, before I start to sort of, make fun of it, I do think that bringing the South Africans and the apartheid thing into this, I think that's like, I mean, in a world where we kind of feel like, it's so hard to do villains right. They have to either be stormtroopers or Nazis. I kind of felt like this was an effective bad guy. I mean, it did sort of make some logical sense. And I'm not going to fault the film for sort of exposing something that I think at the time I probably didn't know much about either. but yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, but between the lessons in apartheid and right the tuna and the dolphins, it's like, all right, we get it.
Yeah, the tuna and the dolphins was the big one. It's like,
Yeah,
give me a break. It's like, oh, fine. I understand. I was there. I remember that. It just too much, man.
right. And it stopped the story. I mean, it does sort of stop the story cold in its tracks to give you a public service announcement about tuna. Right. It's. I mean, and again, we're trying to, I guess it's fine. We're in the Murtaugh's home. We're having a casual evening. We're seeing how Riggs and the Murtaughs relate together. But yeah, it does feel just a mildly slapped in your face a little bit.
A little bit. It was
Maybe not mildly.
No. I was. It's funny how I didn't actually remember that. I always think of Lethal Weapon 2. I think of Leo Getz. I think of the amazing car chase sequence at the beginning of the movie. The little jokes about 1, 2, 3. But for all that, putting those little complaints aside, there is really still a lot to like about this movie. I really, really, really loved, I'd say, all the action sequences. I think all the action sequences were directed well, were edited well, were kinetic and fresh and real. I love that. This movie makes me mourn the loss of practical stunts and special effects.
Yeah. I think the opening is fantastic. And as much as I'm kind of mildly criticizing it for starting as sort of like, it's almost like there's a first third of this film that we don't even see. But I do love how it just kicks things off big time and sort of thrusts us right back into the world of Riggs and Murtaugh with a stellar action scene. The music is great.
Yeah.
Again, we are seeing kind of crazy Riggs running. They make comments. Oh my God! And Riggs is chasing the other car on foot. So yeah, it works. And by the way, it's interesting. Crazed from the first one, who was crazy because he was borderline suicidal anyway, now is just kind of an adrenaline junkie. And I think it's okay. I'm going with it. I'm kind of, like I said, we have to sort of take the story forward. So I'm sort of just going with that. That's fine. But yeah, it's interesting. And, but yeah, I think the whole opening car chase really is pretty great. And again, I like that they pull out all the stops. I mean, there's a helicopter all of a sudden in the middle of the city. Pretty wild. Some of the other actions, okay, but we'll get to it.
Well, in a way, it's a testament to the honesty of the movie, because it does set the tone right off the bat with, okay, here's these guys, here's their people that he worked with. This is the chemistry between them. This is the fact that Murtaugh is out there with his wife's car and stuff like that, which becomes a whole other running joke throughout the movie, which I admit I still laughed at. I'm sorry, I did. Every time that car, that station wagon took abuse, I giggled. I admit it. So that worked. Obviously, that worked. But not only that, it also sets up some of the fact that, this is going to be a little more quippy, because the one cop hits the vehicle, it explodes. They drive right by the vehicle. Oh, now we're cooking. Wow.
Yes. I think the worst offender for me comes later. The chase. I'm trying to remember where this was now, but it was when they first go to the Stilt house and Riggs is chasing down a guy who's making a getaway in the tow truck.
Yeah.
And the action scene there is
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little awkward. It's a little forced. I got no problem with Riggs being able to chase the car down to be able to get on top. But then from there, it kind of feels like, and again, kind of Jeffrey Boehm, because it's not dissimilar to my criticisms of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, because I remember feeling like the truck chase was so organic, just worked so well. It was flawless. Then 2 films later, you get that tank chase, which is trying to do the same thing, but it just sort of feels like, well, we have a tank. What gimmicks can we do with a tank? And let's just check them off one by one. And this has kind of got a little bit of that feel. It's like, Riggs is kind of being silly. We have to start with him on top, and then the part when he flips over the top and ends up on the, I don't know what he's actually on, but he's on the bumper somehow. I'm thinking I'm like, oh boy, this really does feel kind of forced and awkward. But of course, getting back to the quips, when at the end when it ends and the guy gets smashed in the head with a surfboard, and Riggs goes, "Oh, wipeout," and I'm like, did he really just say that? Come on. It really is just getting to be like again, raised on too many action movies. We got to have a weird quip after every thing. So
when he said wipeout, in my head, I flashed back to The Critic where he was like, they were showing scenes from a new Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he was playing a rabbi. And he's like, "You're gonna have to do a twist on that baby." And he throws the knife at him. He's like, "Ava Nagila."
Ava Nagila, baby.
Yeah,
yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah, like you said. I mean, and there's a lot of good stuff that offsets it, but yes, I almost feel like if you just sort of left a little bit of that out, I don't know. Like how many chuckles are you really gonna get with that sort of stuff with Wipeout? Just kind of silly movie stuff, but
silly 80 movies tropes. But still, there's heart there. I love. It's the little interactions in this movie that make it worth it. The fact that he tells him, hey, his daughter's going to be in a commercial tonight, and it turns out to be a condom commercial, which back in the 80s, that was a really big deal. You right. You young millennials have no idea how hard it was for us to learn about condoms back in the 80s.
I think the whole reason that's even in that movie was because that was sort of like a new controversial thing, like the idea that you'd see these on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And then the gentle ribbing between them. I like the interactions between all the co-workers and everything like that. It was nice that they kind of gave a little bit of life to each of the guys that wound up unfortunately getting killed before the end of the movie. But it was nice that they expanded the world a little bit, made the interactions between them feel genuine, like cops that have been through a lot and everything like that. That was nice. But honestly, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and the one that most reminded me of the first one, was the scene in the bathroom, where he's sitting there and everybody's left. They're getting ready to do the thing where they pull him off, and Riggs and Murtaugh just kind of share this moment. And it's not, and they don't go into like a long diatribe. It's quiet. It's just, hey, Riggs, and Riggs just kind of gets a look. It's like, I know, man, I know. And I love that. That's like my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's, and it's interesting too, because I as I was sort of rewatching it today, I remember kind of feeling like, oh yeah, I forgot how long this takes. Like they do spend a lot of time on this scene, but again, it's a great one. It really is a good one, right? And it's about the interaction with these two, and it really is. It's just great stuff. You're absolutely right. The film has heart. I'll tell you what scene popped out for me today, in the same vein, which kind of surprised me, and I'll probably say this is kind of the best of times, worst of times stuff, because.
Is it Patsy Kensid's breasts?
Well, that's pretty spectacular too. And of course we get the batter up quip, and it's like, all right, there's the quip for the scene. But early on, it was the gold pen scene.
Yeah, that was go on.
Well, I tell you, it's funny because I think I used to be a lot more critical of that scene, and rightly so, because I kind of felt like it's a weird. The scene itself is a tiny bit odd because I sort of feel like, it's almost like, why is this even here? Well, I guess it's here for a couple reasons. We're kind of reminding the audience that Riggs had been through what he like his wife being killed, etc., died in a car crash, and of course it's going to come up later, even in this film. So we need a little refresher.
Oh yeah, this movie is chock full of Chekhov's guns moments, and that pen is definitely one of them. So go on.
Sure. But I remember just the gold pen. First of all, I don't even see Riggs as the kind of guy who would carry around a gold pen. So I remember feeling like that kind of story was a little oddly written. But even the delivery, he's chopping vegetables, cooking dinner, whatever, while Darlene Love, I think is her name, is just sitting at the table doing stuff. Mm-hmm. So I remember thinking like, well, this is certainly not one of the best written scenes. But I did have to say that as I was watching it today, I really was just sort of appreciating the idea that Riggs was having a moment with Murtaugh's wife, who essentially had, again, Riggs had sort of become family at this point. And even the sort of throwaway line when she says, like, well, I didn't mean to push. And he goes, no, we never actually talked about this. And, so I kind of was with it. But then I think the part that got me was at the end when, as he's finishing his story, he says, and something about the gold pen. Murtaugh walks in and goes, hey, gold pen. Trish found a gold pen in the laundry. And the two of them, Riggs and Murtaugh's wife give each other a look and a smile, meaning that Riggs never even really told Murtaugh this story yet. So now the two of them just sort of had like this, a little, not a secret, but just kind of like, the two of them had a moment, Yeah. And again, I thought that was really good. Like it just kind of did my heart good today watching that.
It was the story itself was crap, but the moment was nice. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But it was also part of the atypical Jeffrey Baum, Chekhov's gun situations. You had that. You had the diplomatic immunity thing. You had the nail gun. They had to set up the nail gun.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No. Very true. Very true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of things that happen early on, and you kind of just like, all right, well, we'll be seeing that again later.
Yeah, it's a poor magic trick almost. It's like, oh, hey, we have to have a scene where Riggs gets out of a straitjacket and explains why. So for later on in the movie, right. but weirdly, I kind of feel like that works because it's still at a moment where it's light, and it sets it up for the audience so that because it's a heavy scene when he actually breaks out, and also I can't explain why, but I love that scene for some reason. Just watching him go buck wild after he gets out from under the water and everything like that, and having to sit there and make an explanation would not have worked. So yeah, okay, it was shoehorned into the beginning, but it was an effective shoehorn as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, dude, first of all, seeing Riggs just smashing some dude's head in the car door, how could you not just love this? I mean, again, it's the whole point is that it's, we saw, I mean, that to me, I kind of feel like it's as much as I have been critical talking about Tarantino's movies lately, where like, well, the whole point of this movie is just to give you this wildly violent scene at the end that you're cheering for. Well, here you go. I mean, this is we'd seen Riggs go through the ringer. We know what's been happening. We see that they've killed Patsy Kensit. So hell yeah, we're gonna smash somebody's head in the car door. Or
drop a shipping crate on top of them.
Yeah, right. Which again, a pretty effective moment too. Again, kind of a familiar trope. The good guy walks away. The bad guy pulls the gun. So we. Kind of lifted right from the first one, frankly.
Yeah, but, a little bit.
But hey, I mean, it's okay. But you kind of reminded me too the scene of when Murtaugh and Leo Getz go into the African embassy.
Mr. Jones?
Right.
Sit down, please. Well, what can I do for you today?
Okay. I have this problem, this very delicate matter. I have a friend of mine who wants to emigrate to South Africa.
Yes, of course. I can certainly help him do that.
Oh, sure. But I want you to talk him out of it.
Talk him out of it?
Yeah.
Whatever for?
Well, you see, this is such a bad time for him to go to South Africa. I mean, with all the trouble and everything, okay?
Oh, look, why don't you ask your friend to come back later in the week? We can sit down.
No, he's here. He's here.
He's He's here?
Yeah, he's here now.
Where?
Alphonse. Alphonse.
How you doing?
I think there must be some mistake.
Say what?
Sir, listen to your friend here. He knows what he's talking about. I don't think you really want to go to South Africa.
Why not?
Because you're black.
You are. He is.
Of course I'm black. That's why I want to go to South Africa. To join up with my oppressed brothers. To take up the struggle against the tyranny of the racist, fascist, white minority regime.
Fascist white regime.
One man, one vote.
One man, one vote.
Free South Africa, you dumb son of a bitch!
You dumb son of a bitch.
Look, I've heard just about as much as I want to. I'm going to ask both of you.
Hey, look here.
Free South Africa, you dumb son of a bitch. You dumb son, of, a bitch.
You know, yeah, and I got it. And again, that was another one that kind of got me today. See, you know, you're absolutely right what you said before about it was nice. It's nicer reviewing this movie after having some time from reviewing the first one, because yes, the film does have this feel of just kind of revisiting old friends, and that feeling is so much better from, again, not having. I really can't remember the last time I sat down and watched this film. I must have seen it like a million times. I don't think like this never replaced the original as being like, you know, just my what I mean the original Lethal Weapon was a big favorite of mine when I was younger, like big favorite. And this one, again, I always saw it as, you know, a very solid follow up, but again, not quite matching the magic of the first one. It does, again, a little more tongue in cheek, etc. All that stuff was visible even way back when. But watching that scene with the two of them in the embassy and kind of forgetting how this scene flowed and played out, where what started out as a simple distraction so Riggs can slip in the side door, all of a sudden, you know, Murtaugh gets very caught up in the moment. And now he's yelling and screaming at the thing. And by the time they throw him out and all the other protesters are there, and you see him turn around like, but you know, that was just so much fun. That was just such a great moment.
And there are a lot of great moments in this movie, and it's still an enjoyable movie. It is just very much a product of its time. Something that maybe doesn't stand up as well to the test of time as some movies. There are some movies that can last. The first Lethal Weapon, absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, it has withstood the test of time. You know, almost 35 years later with that movie, and it was still just as enthralling, exciting, visceral, felt plausible, you know. And then this one comes along, and this one's just kind of a little tweak on the formula to try to, you know, tone it down a little bit, maybe, and to maybe make it more palatable. Because I mean, I understand that you know, you can't have it be dark all the time and everything like that, but it's still, the first one is a testament to all cylinders firing perfectly. This one, as enjoyable as it is still a product of its time, and it feels very much like the first one felt like it had freedom. This one kind of felt like it had studio intentions and necessities in order to be made, especially with the salaries and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's probably a great way to put it. Right. The second one gets a little more cinematic, and actually, now that we're talking about it, you know what I'm having flashes of is Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Oh yeah,
and you know, right, very very similar. Where again, the first one is realistic, gritty, flawless, and then the second one, fun, a lot of fun, good looking film, but yes, obviously very cinematic, much more tongue in cheek. You can sort of see the screenplay kind of write itself, where you just kind of go from here to there to there to there, and then we'll end up at our final destination. And you know why I think that just popped in my head too, by the way. What was it with putting our heroes in baseball jackets around that time. Because all of a sudden, like, you got Riggs with the baseball jacket, which I thought worked fine, and then all of a sudden I had a flash of actual Foley in the second one, also with a I think it was a Detroit Lions jacket.
It was a Detroit Lions jacket, yeah.
But the same thing with the sleeves, etc. So yeah, I guess that was sort of a thing back then.
I can only assume MLB product placement. I'll still never forget the bottle of cologne that got blown up, very, very clearly in shot to make sure you saw what brand it was.
Good point. Yeah.
There was a decent amount of product placement there. Just before he discovered the Alba Varden was the boat, his TV's on, happens to be on a Nike commercial.
Yeah, big time. I think even before Rayanne's commercial comes on, there was something on TV there. You're absolutely right. The product placement is kind of noticeable in this.
A little bit. And again, you know what? I feel like I'm beating on this thing, and like I didn't like it. It's not that it's so far from the truth. I really did enjoy this movie, and I still enjoy this movie to this very day. It's just that, after the relatively recent rewatch of the first one, the tonal differences between the two, even though it's mostly the same people making the movie, but the tonal difference between the two is so striking that I couldn't help but point it out.
Lethal Weapon 2.
You go first. I'm really too old for this. You go first. I'll cover you.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Good police work, officer.
Come on.
No.
Back to my place. Hey, I'll even cook.
You're lucky. I have to live with that.
You're not gonna make it.
I'm gonna make it.
There's not enough room.
You were right, Yeah, there wasn't enough room.
But tone aside, what do we got for a score? My man, what do you think?
This is actually a tough one for me, frankly, because if memory serves, I'm sure I gave Lethal Weapon a perfect 10.
I believe you did. I believe I did too.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? And I kind of feel like this one, I can't. I mean, it's obviously a step down. It's still a fine film, but boy, am I sort of back and forth between an 8 and a 9. I kind of feel like it feels like a good solid 8 movie, but I kind of feel like, boy, two stops down from the first one. Is it quite that much of a step down? I don't know. I kind of feel like it's an 8 would be unfair, but a 9 feels real generous. But I guess I'm going to have to go with my gut and call this a solid 8. But again, in any normal circumstance, again, as far as I'm concerned, an 8 is a very, there's nothing to be ashamed of with an 8. I mean, I feel like this film is a solid B+ effort. Maybe even an A-, but certainly a B+. I think again it recaptures all of the things. I mean when I'm boy, how old am I? I guess probably 20. I guess the first one was 87, so I would have been 17, and anxiously awaiting a second. And when I finally got it with this one, I was perfectly happy. I really did feel like they captured so much of what I wanted from the first one. And they were able to find creative ways to do that story-wise. So, yeah, I really did find this to be not only a good echo of the original, but also a good progression of the characters. So, yeah, color me very satisfied with this film. Again, I feel an 8 is a tiny bit dismissive, but I guess I'm going to go with it.
I don't think an 8 is dismissive at all. I feel it's actually warranted because I also gave it an 8. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is not a terrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. And an 8 is not a score that we should be ashamed of, because there are shifts in the way the series goes, starting with this movie. It's still retaining a lot of what made the first movie great. The interaction between Riggs and Murtaugh, the arc of the characters, and the characters all have an arc. Man, maybe save for Murtaugh. Murtaugh kind of stays in neutral. In a weird way, because like the first one, his whole arc was I'm getting too old for this shit, and in this one it's not quite that. Maybe his whole arc winds up being that he pulls a Riggs because he kills what's his face at the end, Arden.
Right.
And it's really probably the first time he did something outside of what he would normally do, because he was always very by the book, and that was part of his character. So maybe that could be part of his arc.
Well, it's funny as you're saying it. Honestly, the films are kind of starting to make a pattern for themselves, where Murtaugh takes out the lead guy, and Riggs takes out the heavy, who's the second in command.
Right, exactly, and that's all fine. There is nothing wrong with any of this. There is nothing shameful about an 8, because I do feel that as a series it falters a little bit because it really lost a little bit of its roots. Now, granted, they had to get Riggs back to his psychopathic ways as he was in the first one, which is understandable. But it's almost the thing is that because they started, if it was about trying to get him back to his dark ways, then perhaps starting it so tonally light made, and then switching it down to, complete darkness. See, that's why I still give it a high score, actually, because even as I'm saying it, I was going to complain, and I'm thinking to myself, no, actually, it actually works, because it was a little over the top with the comedy, but it worked, because like the quips pretty much stop after all the cops get killed and Patsy Kensit is found. There's one last quip in the entire movie. And it's a doozy, but we're going to get to that. It's an 8. It's a solid movie. It's a great evolution of the characters, but I would have taken a point off. Originally, I was going to go for a 7, and then I realized I was being unfair because I was going to ding it a point, because this is the tonal shift for the entire series where I kind of feel like it loses its luster. But I realized that's unfair to the movie because it's got to stand alone. It can't be responsible for the rest of the series.
I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm with you there.
So I think this week I'll go first because I always make you go first. So who asked you?
All right, bring it on.
All right. I had a couple. The product placement was glaring. Like the days of subtle product placement had not come yet in 1989.
or maybe the days of in-your-face product placement was dawning around this time.
Yeah, I'm feeling like it was probably that, and that was a little bit of annoying. I mentioned the quips. I feel I should bring it up again. Sometimes the quips worked. Most of the times they did not. But to me, even when I first saw this movie, I groaned, like audibly groaned, during the big diplomatic immunity. Groaned. And not because the guy was being an arrogant dick, but because I knew what was coming up next. And it was like, that's terrible. You could have done that so much better. So much better. Especially, and nothing against Joss Ackland. The guy did a great job and everything like that. He's Joss Ackland. He does villainy like nobody can possibly do villainy. But just the way he drawled about it, and it's like, I am a racist. I am a racist diplomat who's looking at a black man really trying to sell diplomatic immunity. It's like, no, that's not working. Thank you very much. I absolutely hated that when I first saw it, and to this very day, I kind of still put my hand in my eyes and be like, I can't believe somebody said, yes, that's the key shot.
So is the actual award going to his delivery of diplomatic immunity or the groaning quip that followed it?
The entire scene, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'm with you there too. You're absolutely correct. I mean, it does feel like all of a sudden the guy's putting on a voice going diplomatic immunity, like trying to be as obnoxious as possible. And yeah, you're right. There was only one response to that.
Yeah, it was so over. I mean, he might as well have said, "Just shoot me in my forehead."
Yeah, exactly.
And how about you? Who asked you?
I tell you what, I kind of feel like this is going to be one of those vague ones that I can't really nail down to a specific thing. One of them I'll just come right out and say Jeffrey Boehm.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that, but please go on.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, again, he is one of those, late 80s, early 90s action film writers who basically has one playbook, and they stick to it like glue. And like I mentioned Beverly Hills Cop 2. That to me is another big one. And I mentioned that he also did Last Crusade, which I find to be just really unbearable. Yeah, so he doesn't have a lot of range. He's real simple, and it's frustrating too because if I remember correctly, Shane Black started this project, but he didn't see it through, and Jeffrey Boehm took over or something. So you can sort of see the input of both, and you can easily see where Boehm. I mean, this is kind of like Superman 2, frankly, where you're kind of seeing the genius of it is what Donner had done, but then the goofy nonsense is the Lester stuff. So I sort of feel like you can kind of read Lethal Weapon 2 very similarly, where you can see the inputs of both. The other thing I want to mention, though, is there is a part later that I feel like there must have been something happening that got lost in the editing room. I kind of feel like there's a lot of once you start to see the other cops start to get killed off.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like there's something happening there that's getting a little screwy. Because all of a sudden, like later on, like Riggs, when he's going to the Stilt house, he's talking to Murtaugh on the phone. It kind of, something about it feels awkward. Like Murtaugh is in the office sitting at his desk while Riggs is doing this. Riggs suddenly has a hat on later when he and Murtaugh finally meet up, and how Murtaugh gets ahead of him on the way to the Stilt house, I'm not sure. Kind of minor stuff, but again, I do sort of feel like there was something happening there that kind of got a little screwed up, and I can't put my finger on what it was. And by the way, one last little nitpick: there's too many black cops with mustaches.
What?
There are too many black cops with mustaches. I mean, you have Roger Murtaugh. He's a black guy with a mustache. Then you also had the other one who is played by Grant Bush is his name. He shows up in the first Lethal Weapon. He was in 48 Hours. He was in Die Hard as one of the Johnsons.
All right. Yes, I remember him.
He's in this. And then there's a third guy, another black guy with a mustache who looks exactly like Murtaugh. And to get to my point finally, the scene where the guy's hanging upside down, the guy's in his house and he's hanging from inversion boots, which probably looks sort of weird. And then the bad guy comes in and shoots him in the head. But it looks like that's Murtaugh. Like he's upside down and he looks exactly Murtaugh even standing up. So I kind of felt like that was sort of like a big casting mistake to have guys who like they look too similar. So I remember the first time I saw it getting real confused because I thought Murtaugh got shot.
Wow, man. Make sure you pick up your white sheet on the way out. Okay. Okay. I don't think that
maybe instead of saying too many black guys, I should have just said too many mustaches. But
yeah, I think too many mustaches definitely would have worked. But
there you go.
You know what? I can understand. I didn't miss it at all because there's also the context situation. Like, why would Murtaugh be hanging upside down?
Right. Yeah.
So. But okay, I feel you. But that should definitely go on the side of the box as a review. Too many black guys with mustaches. Got it. How about for your consideration, sir?
There's a few things I would love to kind of shine the spotlight on. One of them. Well, first of all, again, kind of like how we were saying for the Bill and Ted's, that the chemistry between the two leads really does make all of this kind of work. So I kind of feel like I'd be really dismissive if I didn't mention Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. But I don't want to just kind of go on a rant about all the things that are good about the film. So I'll kind of narrow it down to two. One of them is Patsy Kensit.
Yeah.
Who I think was a real sort of shining light in this film. Very good. And apparently, I mean, you didn't see her in very much because I think she was more of a musician than an actual actress. But I thought she was spectacular in this. And again, you needed somebody in that role to kind of like if Riggs is gonna go off the handle again and kind of become this crazed lunatic like he was in the first one, well, you really need to show why, and I feel like she does that. As you're watching the movie, you're kind of slowly falling head over heels for her along with Riggs. So when shit goes down, you get it, and you're sort of with Murtaugh the whole time. I mean, with Riggs the whole time. So I think that works pretty well. She was really good. And the other one that I just wanted to give a nod to is the soundtrack. And the reason why I say soundtrack instead of score is because even the songs in this film are pretty damn good. When I get to the end credits, I don't shut the film off just yet. I kind of really like that song that kind of plays us out, and it sort of goes with the film pretty nicely. But yeah, I mean, I was a huge fan of the score of the first one. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was a big mention. If it wasn't one of my for your considerations, I'm sure it was high up on my list. But yeah, I thought the score was really great in the first one, and I liked that they, for the most part, they didn't just replay beats a lot, but they did sort of keep that same style with this, and it worked pretty well. There were some moments in the film where I kind of felt like maybe we needed more score, like there was kind of like this funky I don't even know what you call it, but like in some of the quiet sneaky scenes at night, there was this kind of dunk whatever. They kind of overused that a little bit, but what you do get here is pretty good.
You know what? I can't disagree with you. Michael Kamen and Eric Clapton's score is truly a highlight of the series because they continue out throughout the series. They're probably one of the few highlights that remain for the rest of the series. So I'll give you that, man. Absolutely. Good stuff. Believe it or not, all jokes aside, I actually did put Patsy Kensit, but I added the word breasts for your consideration. I feel like a complete total perv here, but whatever.
Honesty counts, brother. Keep it real.
I did love, the action. I kind of got a charge out of the scene when you first meet Leo Getz, and for the first time, it truly is the Three Stooges. I did dig that because they set up the Three Stooges, and then boom, there's the Three Stooges, and he gave him a little Moe slap and everything like that. I did like that, but honestly, I mentioned it during the show. My for your consideration is that moment with Riggs and Murtaugh in the bathroom. Big serious moment, and it's such a great little character moment through them. Not over the top, not overly explained, not narrated or anything like that. Just a moment, and I felt the two of them played it perfectly. My favorite scene in that movie.
I can't argue with that, brother. That is a tremendous. That is kind of the heart of the film, and I think you sort of nailed it there.
Lethal Weapon 2. This time, they're not taking any crap.
Just get off me, man. I don't want anybody to see us like that.
And thus ends the review of Lethal Weapon 2. But you would think that would be the end of the Lethal Weapon series. In fact, originally they were going to keep it vague whether Riggs even lived at the end of Lethal Weapon 2. Audiences decided differently because next week we come back and, well, if we're saying that the series falters a little bit here, well, we'll have to see what happens with next week's review of Lethal Weapon 3.
And that's when things are going to get interesting, because I'll tell you this. I've seen the first one many times. I've seen the second one many times. 3 and 4, not so much. So it'll be interesting to literally go back and rewatch because I haven't really given them a watch in quite a while. But so I guess we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will.
All right, my brother. Thank you so much again. As always, it was a lot of fun. Happy to be back, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
A city riddled with crime, murder, drugs, high gas prices, and people who leave their Christmas lights up too long. But 2 cops are about to wipe the slate clean.
Tell me the truth, man.
He is from Pakistan.
Hey, you want a piece of me?
Just like his homeland's cuisine, he'll have you on the run. He's made in Taiwan.
Hey!
He may be Chinese, but 2 hours later, you won't be wanting any more of him. When Far East meets Middle East, the bad guys might find it best to move west. Each day could be the last day of their lives.
You do one more thing, one more!
To get the job done, sometimes you have to bend the rules.
No, get the hell out of my office!
But before they turn in their badge,
I'm getting too old to do this. Stop saying this!
there's a killer pimp who must be stopped. And sometimes to catch the big fish, you need some pretty attractive bait.
How you doing, Connie Chung?
This mini United Nations speaks the international language of justice.
I'm the man! I'm a man too. Have you ever seen Brokeback? I'm the cop!
Don't let these pretty faces fool you.
We're a cop! We'll shoot you!
These 2 are all business. And when these 2 cultures collide, just be glad they're on your side. Lethal Wonton, Thursdays on the CW.